Hello you lovely lot, it's me, GhostCritic, and looks like I made it. I was going to split this video into 3 separate chunks and put them out over the weekend as and when I can, but Wednesday night was a joyous night of comic book reading entertainment and I whizzed through them all. They were just such great reads that I just lost track of time, forgot about everything else that was going on around me, and before I knew it, it was quite late and I'd finished all my comics. So I thought, let's crack on with a proper length comic book review video. I am still going to, however, split it into Marvel, DC and Image, and of course I'll have my pick of the week as a separate video, as is the norm for me. So let's crack on. Okay, it's all things Marvel, all things Secret Wars Battleworld, and we're kicking off with Inhumans, Attilan Rising issue 2. And this would probably only make a smidgen of sense to my viewers in the UK and those that are also of a certain age, because I don't know why it occurred to me, but as I was reading this and as I finished it, I actually thought this is very much like a British sitcom from the 1980s called Hello Hello. Scott Coston-Bromsat, if you're watching, you would love it. It is quite tacky and very British comedy. But in Hello Hello, you have this French cafe owner. It's set in the Second World War, and he's kind of stuck between the Gestapo and the Resistance. And it's very farcical, it's kind of funny in a very early 80s kind of way. But it just kind of reminded me of this, because we have what is essentially the same kind of setup. We have Black Bolt, who is running this bar called The Quiet Room, where members of all the different kind of patchwork lands around in this battle world reside, and they can come to this kind of bar and just kind of chill out, I guess. There's no fighting allowed, you know, there's all those rules about, you know, this is a neutral zone, but obviously we know that Black Bolt is actually the leader of the resistance against Doom, and that is the Voice Unheard. The Voice Unheard's HQ being in the bowels of this quiet room. And we have Medusa's envoy Auron trying to infiltrate the quiet room, and we saw at the end of last issue her meeting up with Black Bolt. In this issue we realise that Black Bolt has, you know, clicked who it is straight away and is keeping his eye on her, which kind of stops her from getting anywhere. So it's fortunate that she has a cohort in tow, and that's Kamala, and Kamala can morph herself into any other person, and she eventually makes her way down to the bowels, overhears conversations, but we have our version of Daredevil down here, and he hears something that shouldn't be there. So they capture Kamala. It's all very action-packed. We've got Black Bolt now leading the resistance into the war zone on New Mars to send medical supplies to the people inside. But who's waiting there on the other side of the portal? It is, of course, Medusa and her army, ready just to blow them to smithereens, really. We clearly have a traitor within the Voice Unheard. It was great. I love this. This is fantastic stuff. I hope this continues well after Secret World has ended. The artwork here by Timis Poggi and Damata on colours. You're going to hear that name again very soon. Just doing a really great job. It's Marvel Comics. It's that kind of Marvel comic book style, which I kind of dig on a kind of I guess, a basic level, but it's all done so very, very well. My next book, it was one of the #1s that I picked up this week. It was Battleworld Marvel Zombies, and I was kind of going into this with a slight little bit of trepidation. The true kind of Marvel zombies that had come before this, kind of pre-Secret Wars, it is very dark, it's very gruesome, it's very gory, it is kind of very horror inspired, and I didn't know if I wanted more of that here. Well, you don't really. This is a book, if you are into kind of like dry wit with a very kind of, with a smidge of kind of black humour in there, you'll probably really dig this book. It focuses on Elsa Bloodstone. We see her on the front cover, and she's kind of holding back the hordes of zombies, and she is just this kind of taking no nonsense kind of commander, captain-esque type character, who will fight to the bitter end, but likes a cup of tea while she's doing it. Unfortunately, we have, I guess it's a zombie nightcrawler, comes her way and bamps her far, far, far away from the ensuing battle. And it's here that she meets a young boy, a young child, I guess it's a boy, a young child who has amnesia, doesn't know their name, where they've come from, so kind of Elsa takes him under her wing, so to speak, and they head off to go back to where they came from. But it's not the right way to go, because they're at like the other end of the zombie hordes, trying to break down the shield which is separating the zombies from, you know, kind of the normal civilization that's just over the wall. So they have to turn back. Interspersed with all this, there's kind of flashbacks to Elsa as a young girl and having her dad be so cold-hearted to her, trying to build her up to be this strong fighter and hunter. And it's kind of Elsa trying to live up to her father's legacy. And while in some respects she does that, you can tell she still has that kind-hearted soul somewhere in there as she starts kind of taking a little bit of a liking to the young boy. There are some kind of really cool little slips in here with zombie Dr. Octopus in there, with his kind of mechanical tentacles, with Elsa giving him short thrift. It was just a really fun and entertaining book. Another great start to another Secret Wars Battleworld tie-in. To finish off for Marvel, it was the book that it was the only Secret Wars book that I had actually pre-ordered, bar the kind of the main event book, and that was Weird World. Well, it was weird. I had to mull over this quite a bit to decide whether I actually enjoyed it or not. As I said in my Wednesday video, I kind of built this up. I had high expectations for it. I was hoping that this was as exciting a fantasy genre book as I like to be fed. And what we have here is Archon, who's a warlord trying to make his way across Weird World to his home. And along the way, he has to battle all kinds of beasties and monsters. And this is where I started, and this is very early on in the book, and now when I kind of look back at it and reread it, I kind of appreciate it a little bit more, and that is the artwork. Now, there's no denying there are a lot of gorgeous pages in here. The artist Mike Del Mundo has a very it's a painted style. There are some gorgeous double page spreads, but it's the kind of more panelled work that kind of loses detail within all the painting, but it's hard to say something bad about it because it is so nice to look at, and in some respects and in some pages so suits this book as this kind of fantasy genre. We find as we go along in the book that Weird World is actually a floating island, as Archon almost manages to fall off the edge, and then it just goes crazy and even more weirder as the book finishes, as a dragon enters, being trying to be caught by a group of ogres. So Archon attempts to save the dragon and not necessarily tame it, but allow it to escape from these orcs, which he does, but just it's kind of like out of the frying pan into the fire. He and the dragon are dragged down into the sea, or this huge lake, but what lies at the bottom of the lake? Apes in diving suits. Yes, it's weird. At the end of this, got a little bit excited because it mentioned Man-Things, and also who seems to be running this particular borough of Battleworld is Morgan Le Fay. So there's certainly going to be an element of magic going on. I'll obviously keep getting this. I think it's a 4-part mini. The artwork for me is the one that's just making me pull back just a touch from thinking this was a fantastic issue. And we are moving on to DC, and I picked up 2 titles that just happen to be Bat related. However, they were both pretty much talking about the same thing, but each had a glaring error. Snyder not talking to Buccioletta and Manipul, I believe. I'll talk about that later on. We're going to kick off with Batman Detective issue 41, and this is very much a book from the perspective of Harvey Bullock. It seems to be kind of turning into the Gotham Central title from quite a few years back, where it's centering on the kind of cops and detectives of Gotham, and like I said, it's all being seen through the eyes of Harvey Bullock. We have Maggie Sawyer trying to get Harvey onto her kind of Bat task force to look after and kind of follow and work with our new Robo Batman. But Harvey wants nothing to do with this fake Batman, and still thinks that the real Batman is alive out there somewhere, and wants to follow and investigate leads to finding where he is so he can bring him back to Gotham. Which is kind of strange given kind of Harvey's pretty much hatred for Batman, him being a vigilante who doesn't work with the police, who uses methods that are against kind of police protocol. So I find it very strange that Harvey wants to walk that path and kind of essentially bring back the real Batman. There is also the kind of, I don't know whether they just want to kind of spice this title up a bit, but Harvey and Nancy are now an item. We find them in bed together at the beginning of this issue. And then we have this seemingly, well, it is pointless, bar brawl, because the only reason for it being there is so that Montoya can turn up and kind of save the day, so to speak. And again, she's used to try and draw Bullock into this Bat task force, which eventually happens. He becomes part of it. However, most of this issue, for me, was pretty fluff. I was not interested in pretty much 80% of it, maybe 90% of it. But the very end of this certainly did intrigue me. I wonder where are Manipul and Buccelletta, who are both writing this time, are taking it, as Montoya gets a call very mysteriously, and it is regarding, well, basically her killing a lot of people. What is that about? We'll find out clearly in the next few issues, but I wasn't impressed with this kind of comeback issue after DC's break with Convergence, Divergence, whatever's going on over there at DC. The artwork wasn't up to standard. It's now Blanco on artwork alone. As I said, Manipul and Buccelletta both on writing duties this time. Nowhere near as stylized and attractive as it has been in previous issues. So I'm afraid Detective Comics, a bit of a dud for me this week. And Batman 41 wasn't for me that exciting either. I've read it now, I've seen kind of both sides, and the idea of James Gordon inside a Batman robot suit just doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't make sense, it looks a bit stupid. Basically this issue is seen from Gordon's perspective and how he ends up in that batsuit after first being quite reticent about being involved with it, and this is kind of done again in kind of flashback scenes of the creator of this batsuit kind of coercing Gordon into using the suit and becoming this new Batman, as they have lots of people being trained, but they are not up to the standard of Gordon, because quite frankly, you know, he's the one. You know, if there was ever a battle for the cowl, why wasn't Gordon involved in the pre-52 version of that? These kind of flip-flops all over the place. We have Snyder trying to be a little bit funny, Capullo having a little bit of fun in showing some jokey versions of the Batsuit, one of them kind of incorporating the Robin costume, which just looked ridiculous. Obviously it is a robotic suit that James Gordon gets inside, so he has to have kind of his own Batsuit properly, just like the normal Batman would have, and that suit just doesn't wash with me. Gordon looks way too athletic in it. He is not that kind of guy. I don't care if he was ex-Marine. We've seen him in past issues, you know. He's a smoker. He's, you know, he doesn't really look after himself. He's just been inside, for God's sake, in prison, or maybe that was 5 years in the past. You can't tell with the timeline of Batman sometimes, but it just, no, it doesn't feel right. Something is very much missing. Now, what was I talking about? The glaring error between these two? Well, it's all to do with Harvey Bullock, and it's all to do with James Gordon, because apparently in this issue Harvey Bullock has no idea who is in this suit, and I would guess if he knew it was James Gordon, he wouldn't have such a tough decision deciding whether to be on the task force. However, in this issue, they have a face-to-face conversation, James and Harvey, telling Harvey that he is going to be in that suit. Really? That is such an awful plot point to have missed. There is no washing over this. This doesn't happen any earlier or later than this. This pretty much happens side by side. Come on. That was the easiest thing to tell each other. Does Harvey know or not? Because it ruins that story, and it ruins that story. However, there was a little bit of a surprise at the end of this issue. Is Bruce Wayne there? Okay, so we end our comic book Trinity of publishing houses with the Image titles, and we start with Birthright issue 8, Damn You Birthright. I said on Wednesday I was very meh about this title, that it was kind of on the chopping block. I want to be picking up newer books, more exciting books, and then they did this to me. I think this is more to do with Bresson and Lucas on art than the story, though the story really picked up and kind of got me quite excited, and I guess I'm sticking around with Birthright for just that little bit longer. We deal with kind of the end of last issue, issue 7, where Mikey accidentally shot Brennan, and therefore we need to find him some help. And him, along with the woman who runs the store, have to make their way to a kind of first aid stop. But there's some crap in the way. Yes, our kind of 3 townsfolk hunters that we'd been seeing in last issue have been monstrously transformed by the kind of spirit that has come through from Theranos, and it has kind of, like I say, transformed these guys into rather weird creatures, very monstrous beasties, who are clearly going to be trying to take down Mikey. But that is not all that is going on in this issue, as the police back at home are chasing after our winged pregnant girl. Not having much luck there, but coming to terms with the fact that there is more than meets the eye with this whole affair. So we have the setup now for next issue, where Mikey is clearly going to battle what he is calling the Diviners. The artwork on here and the colouring on here by Lucas is just gorgeous. Lucas has just got the right tones of colours going right through this book, as this kind of spirit that's come through from Theranos has transformed the land around this store that they have been in for the last couple of issues, into just this wild and kind of very fantastical landscape. With kind of luminous looking blue plants. It all just looks fantastic. I'll say it again. Damn you! Black Science issue number 15 was a rip-roaring read of high sci-fi adventure, as we have Grant flying off to release the cure to this kind of diseased-ridden planet into the atmosphere, but it is not an easy job, as he has to, 1, gain altitude so it gets spread across the planet properly, and of course he has a kind of horde of the flying army behind him trying to bring him down. While back at the Pillar there is mutiny in the ranks. Nadir seems to be going back to his nasty self. I said quite a while ago, I think it was last year, I really enjoyed the way Rick Remender had created Nadir as a character to be incredibly nasty and self-centered and arrogant, and, you know, having his own agenda, but then changing it up after he murdered the original Grant, kind of had a fit of consciousness and kind of decided to take Grant's children under his wing and save them and make sure they got home. However, that's not the case anymore. He's just being an arse again. And we have our kind of techno-Indian who is kind of fed up of this dimension hopping and what they are doing and leaving in their wake. And he is going to put a stop to it, and the only way you can do that is to destroy the Pillar, which will basically strand them on this planet. So does he succeed? it gets quite bloody, let's put it that way. You need to be reading black science to enjoy as much as I am this book, because it is a fantastic page turner. There is a mystery behind the kind of this army that inhabits this planet that has been trying to stop our team of scientists since the beginning of the story arc, as he takes off his helmet and Grant is like, oh, it's you, but of course we don't see who it is. I would say that the obvious ones is it could be either Grant or it could be Nadia, but I've got a feeling it's going to be Sean. I think they signposted this right at the very beginning of this book, where we have kind of a flashback to a younger Grant trying to lure a younger Sean into his science team and get him to drop out of college and actually do science rather than learn it. So I think that was pretty much a precursor to knowing who was under that helmet, but hopefully we'll find out in the next issue. I mean, basically this is action-packed, tense, full of just great scenes throughout. Remenda, Scalera, and now Marino how do you say it? Dionisio. I'll say that. Are doing a cracking job on this book. Another great issue in this great sci-fi series. Please go pick this up if you haven't already started. Descender number 4. Another Jeff Lemire, David Nugent art. Another gorgeous book. All these gorgeous looking books at Image. We have, as part of the story, Tim 21. He's finally on the mend after kind of being on death's door, at least what resembles a death's door for a robot. And the question still remains on everyone's lips about the supposed dream he's had, which we saw in the last issue, but there is no time to dwell on that, as our kind of science team are eager to get back to their planet, as Tim 21 could be the key to learning about the harvesters, the invasion of the kind of robotic army from the very first issue, and stopping them if they should come back. And Tim 21 is kind of clever here. He makes a deal with the science team. He wants to go and find his friend Andy, who he sees as his brother, but was really basically just a high-tech toy for this miner's family. Of course, the science team have no reason to do this, and it is just a kind of a smokescreen to get Tim 21 back to the planet. And just as they are kind of taking a rest while the flight takes place, no time for rest, as the Scrappers are back. They are determined to get Tim 21 and destroy him for good. And that means bringing on the melting pits. Another, like I said, gorgeous book to look at. The painted style in here is kind of very unique to a sci-fi book of this nature. I would have expected it to have, because it's like robotic and kind of future sci-fi, to have much more crisper lines, more clearer art, but I think it really does work, and it gives it an almost kind of dreamlike quality in places, especially in some of the flashback scenes that we see involving the captain of this science team and her as a younger girl, and the devastation that happened to her and her mother. So another great Image series, another of my firm favourites. It's difficult to pick a favourite these days. Image are pumping out such great titles. And finally, before I film my pick of the week video, we have Saga issue 29. Well, where do I start? Let's start small, should we? The beginning of the book picks up with the terrorists. They are trying to make a deal with the Wreath High Command to hand over Hazel, the young child, and put a stop to all this nonsense of interbreeding. We have Marco and the Prince managing to finally escape from King Robot's guards after Yuma's sacrifice from the last issue. And then we have Sophie, Gwen, the Brand, Lion Cat and the dog off to get dragon sperm. And yes, another great what the yes, well, let's hope there's enough dragon sperm left for this group to take back and kind of revive the will. Yes, death's blood aplenty as well here. We may not have the happy family reunion once this dragon sperm gets back to where it needs to go. And Saga has really picked up its stride again. It has those shocking moments that are entertaining, jaw-dropping, so freakishly realised. I have no words for that scene, and I can't. This is a family channel, goddamn you. I can't say what I saw. I'm still trying to wipe the image from my eyeballs. It's Saga, great sci-fi, epic stuff here from Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. Well, thank you very much if you've managed to get this far. Well, what can we say? It's been a great week of comics. DC kind of dropped the ball a bit with their Batman titles. Tell me what you thought of their little faux pas between Detective and Batman comic. I just can't imagine a world without Image Comics. The vibrancy, the imagination, the creativity that is going on in those books at the moment, it does really blow DC and Marvel out of the water. However entertaining and fun I'm finding Secret Wars and Battle World. However kind of on the fence I am with all the DC stuff. They just don't hold a candle against Image, and Image do deserve to be the #1 comic book publisher out there. And I kind of beg of you all to, you know, take a moment, if you are just a Marvel or a DC kind of guy or gal, just to go and look at a couple of Image titles, because I swear to God, you will not be disappointed. There is so much rich variety out there that you can escape from the superhero capes and tights and ridiculous over-the-top superpowers, and you will get lots of very personal but creative stories along the way. So check out Image Comics, embrace them to your heart, love them as if they were your child, and help them to flourish. And with that endorsement for Image Comics, I will see you next week. Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button, give this a big thumbs up, and let's throw some comments down in the box below. Bye bye.